We're not political. We're in it. We're in it to talk about potential market plays and how to have potential buying or selling, I guess, opportunities in the
Okay.
market, and whether or not these news events that we're going to choose, we think that these have potential, not totally, right? Sometimes the market ignores, but on these topics we're going to breach on in this June 28th, 2026. Actually, go Dylan, talk about that for a little bit, just so you can take a little bit of time.
Yeah, well, we had a 4 hour long conversation. Stock market really took a dive on that Friday. On the weekend, we were talking and we're like, there's literally all this good stuff lined up after the tariff tantrum. It just doesn't really make sense not to buy now. Like, it's literally like it's such a high probability return, the stock market's going to go back that like it just doesn't make sense not to buy. So yeah, we were really optimistic after that, and it was talking over all the probabilities and scenarios. It would have been great to release a video then, but we weren't doing it back then. But yeah, it was good.
Well, yeah, and we think there's other opportunities, and that's why, like, even though we don't see bombshells in the news, we want to make sure to have our podcast also touch on the news. And it wasn't just the Iran war we talked about a little while ago. It was also, we talked about Venezuela before it even happened.
Oh yeah, Venezuela.
Let's dive in on it. We did talk a little bit about the Iran war when it started and said it was a buying opportunity, which it was. From my little research we've done on it, is that Trump administration and the Iranians have come up with a 60-day kind of ceasefire. It's not really like a peace treaty. Fortunately, that's been broken the last couple of days because there have been rockets fired to Oman, etc. And so oil's gone a little bit up. When we talked, oil was at over $100, and now we're looking at an oil price of sub 70.
Under 70.
The market is telling me that it doesn't think there's going to be, because the market always looks a little bit ahead, 3 months, 6 months. It's telling me it doesn't believe that there's going to be any hellfire firestorm in the Middle East that'll cause us another price increase, right? What's it
Yeah.
telling you, I guess? Let me know, what was it telling you?
Yeah, it's telling me that things are wrapping up. The stock market's pricing in basically a moving on, like some sort of a resolution, which I agree with. I think it's a pretty high probability event that we'll get, the dust settled. Maybe it'll be a little bit of skirmishes. The main thing here that the world cares about is can tankers go down that strait? And that's all we really care. Whether people are shooting each other in Iran or it doesn't really matter as to the rest of the world pretty much, unless as long as ships can go through there.
Yeah, what I'm just going to jump in here, and that is the main thing, is that I didn't think, I wrongly predicted that Iran would not use the Strait of Hormuz, which is the area where 30% of the world global oil goes,
25, yeah.
as a weaponizing it, right? And they have weaponized it. And not only have they weaponized it and stopped flow, they're looking to potentially gain money off of it. Now, USA is like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. You
I don't
should.
think they're gonna be successful, but I mean we'll see. I don't know enough to bet money on that.
Well, so far, some, not all, but some have decided to just pay the toll and get away with it, just say, you know what, screw it, we got to get out of there. Now, here's the thing, and in my common sense will tell me, if they toll that and make it not just toll, forget about the toll, just make it too dangerous. What sailor's gonna actually want to go through there, risk their lives
Deliver the oil.
just to go, no matter how, because people are always talking about, oh, the toll, oh, the shipping rates. What about your lives? What about the mines
Yeah,
that
if I'm on an oil boat and they're like, "Yeah, we're going through there. It might be a little dangerous." I'll be like, "Well, I ain't going back on the. I can wait here. You guys drive the boat. If you guys make it through, I'll meet you on the other side."
bingo. That creates alternatives,
Alternative.
pipelines,
Yeah.
etc. Different routes,
Workarounds. Yeah, yeah.
workarounds. So I believe, again, I don't know this for sure. One, I know actually, I probably shouldn't know this for sure. I guarantee you, the other oil producing nations, the Saudis especially, are going to invest heavily because they already have pipelines, because only a small percentage of it. They're going to invest heavily to try to do everything to avoid the strait from now on, because they're tired of being attacked and they don't want the lesson of oil flow, which I guess could create an opportunity for companies that are building out those alternatives. I haven't done the homework on that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know enough to make money on that, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So that's again, just brainstorm, just brainstorming here. So that's some food for thought. Um, I do think that also, um, there's pressure, worldwide pressure to keep that strait open. Obviously, I think most people do want the strait open, other than maybe Russia. Maybe they see it as something that's good.
There's a few countries that are happy that you're making lots of money right now with the straight clothes for sure, you know,
Yeah, especially the ones that
US included.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, so anything else you want to talk about that? I did think it was something to kind of touch on for like a little while. Um,
Yeah, I mean, what do you think in terms of how it's going to go, how it's going to affect oil, how it's going to affect markets, stuff like that? What's your call?
yeah, my call is this: is I think that, like I said, the market's looking 2 to 3 months ahead. Um, there was at one point where when oil was up, the market was down, so it was like an inverse relationship. That's been totally cracked months ago. What do I think is going to happen? In terms of the market, I think the market is eventually going to move on from it unless something really escalates more to the point where it already has, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but you never know. You never know. I would say probably
Yeah,
not.
what if Israel secretly decides that, atom bomb, the capital of Iran and the ships, the planes flying there right now. Like
Yeah.
we wake up tomorrow and there'd be a whole nother world because
Well,
of
let's look at the precedents.
Netanyahu's insanity. Yeah.
Well, let's look at common sense precedents already, right? Like the market, and I don't know if I knew you at this time, Dylan. Maybe I didn't. But the market during the Ukrainian war, right? It was paying attention to it at first. Obviously,
Yes.
it was reacting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The big spike, etc. But eventually, the war went on, and the market moved on. I kind of see the same thing with this.
Well, I think, like I said, what we talked about earlier, it's the same thing, the question that I had is when they went to war, Russia being a nuclear power, I'm like, is Russia going to just nuke Ukraine, nuke the capital of Ukraine? Like that's just a possibility. They can just press a button and that whole city can be wiped off the map. Now it's risky for them, but it does make things rather convenient. You press a button and your enemy's gone. But it does open a lot of risks. So, I think the world was sort of like, are they going to do it? Like, are they crazy enough to press the button, basically? And they're not, which kind of makes sense. I don't think the Russians have um and they've never atom bombed anybody. I think they're have a good track record, I guess. It's hard to say that, but yeah.
Yeah, the only countries ever used it is the U.S. Actually, ironically.
Yeah. So if
But
you're looking for like a bad boy, it would be the US, honestly.
but you do bring up a good point actually, because I mean, now, unlike before, Ukraine is attacking Moscow, sending like drones over there and actually getting through, So that wasn't happening before, but the market's completely ignored it. Now, has the market ignored it because it's just white noise, or has the market ignored it because it doesn't see anything relevant to the stock market, to the 500 companies or whatever? It's probably more B is what I'm saying. Probably doesn't see any relevant companies. All the American companies have left Russia. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's gone.
And
Russia
Ukraine
still
probably,
exports
yeah.
oil, but it's not. I mean, they're trying to hit oil facilities, but it's on like a tiny, tiny scale. Probably not going to affect um, their production. So I see parallels to that. Potentially, just the world just moves on and they get through, and they live with just the strait is kind of semi-closed. Some oil gets through. I'm sure for sure people are going to continue to stockpile more oil now than before. I think that's another. So how you can make money on that, I don't know. Um, I don't know, like storage facilities, whoever holding it, whatever companies are into that. I think
Piping
that's a
facilities. Yeah, if they're gonna, I don't know if they're gonna use any American companies in the Middle East, but that would be a way to make money. But yeah, I'm not familiar with the space to put any money at risk, honestly.
And by the way, just tell the audience this is how our normal conversations went before our podcast, because we would just come up with ideas and say, "Oh man, like this is a way to invest."
What do we
So
do with it?
just
Yeah, like I remember the Apple thing where we're thinking Apple's gonna announce something to, go against the tariffs. But I wasn't really comfortable enough to put any money at risk. But if I had bought a call and stuff like that, that was about a month before that stock popped. So that was.
Yeah, you're right on that. It's too bad he didn't buy. I mean, it
Yeah.
popped, but now Apple's having some issues now. You know what I mean?
I
Because
remember it was the low 200s and it had a high. I don't think it quite reached 300, but like
no, but
definitely could have made some money
260,
on that. And the
no,
market wasn't pricing it in. And I was like, in the board of directors room, this is happening, and the market's going to realize, oh wow, it's going to be happy to hear that. So, um, yeah, that was my prediction that came out correct. I just didn't know how to make money. It's just, you can predict the future, but you also need to know how to make money safely on it. So those can be two different things.
yeah, definitely. Man, I like this. This is kind of a new like twist to our podcast. I think we're pretty much ready on the Iran thing. I mean, what I guess what's your prediction? You asked me what's your prediction with it?
Yeah, I think it's going to die down. I mean, the Ukraine war has lasted longer than I predicted, and I think most people predicted. I think there's a hidden agenda, I guess you might say. Meaning like, although a lot of the world wants to go on, whoever is getting benefiting out of this, like for example, the Ukraine president is benefiting because there's no election, so he's just the ruler as long as there's a war. So, he has an incentive to keep the war going for the next, 500 years. It doesn't matter. He's not at any risk of dying. He's just his citizens, which he doesn't seem to really care about, are dying. So it's not, he's definitely strongly incentivized to keep the war going. Putin, I think less so. Putin, I think doesn't really want to keep going, but can't, affect it. I don't know. There's the U.S. Sort of West interest in weakening the Putin government and Russia and that whole angle, which I think is not really the greatest angle or idea or whatever you want to call it. But there's that factor. So, I mean, it could be fomented and keep going on. I think it's more likely not gonna at least die down to where the markets don't care and it's not affecting the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's much more likely than not. So that's my prediction.
Agreed. So moving on to the same kind of subject, same vein, I guess. Oil. I mean, where do you see oil prices? I mean, we've seen them. I mean, I think the bottom was at like 60, maybe at the beginning of the year. We hit all the way to 110. Now we're back to in the
60s. Yeah.
60s. Um, I mean, obviously this is going to be a big play for because everybody loves cheap, is addicted to almost cheaper oil prices. But I guess where do you see supply or where do you see oil in this? And is it tied? I guess that number one. And the second question is, how much tied to it is it going to be versus tied to demand like it was, or tied to the war? Does it make sense? The price?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think oil is heading down. I don't feel comfortable enough to short, the oil producers or whatever, or buy puts or whatever. But I think 60 is probably the price range. It's to me seems pretty like stable at where you're not having struggles of the oil companies not making money. But yeah, it's cheap enough for a lot of people to use it and the economy to kind of go. So I think it's more like most likely not going to stay in the 60s,
Yeah, I'm
maybe
gonna say probably a little bit more.
70s.
I'm gonna say probably like 75, 80s. You know what I mean? I'll go a little bit more pricier just because you never know what's going to happen in the Middle East. You know what I mean? And that you're going to have some type of price premium there. No, don't get me wrong. I think everybody is going to try to keep the price down by pumping as much as you possibly can and trying to get the oil. But from my understanding, what's happening is that, okay, so a lot of countries used up their reserves, right? Okay, so their reserves are drawn down. But now what's happening is because now the Strait of Hormuz is open, a whole bunch of glut of oil is coming in, right? So what's going to happen to that oil? It's going to go on the oil and should hopefully drive the price back down because they're going to use it. Or I don't, again, I'm not an oil expert. Perhaps they put that back into the reserves. I don't know.
Start with the reserves. Yeah, maybe
I don't
both
know.
at this
Like
point.
it's very that's why I'm saying it's very interesting. So it's like you had regular flow coming in, stop, lose reserves, and then you've got like it's disrupting the flow. So that tells me that the prices are probably going to gyrate a little bit more, and which I have actually. They've already gyrated. Like
Yeah.
you, you
Yeah. Gyra, obviously volatility in the oil prices given with all this situation going on. But I think with more oil production in the next year or two, I think it's more likely to with some volatility, maybe 60, 80, whatever, maybe even 90, but like I think it's most likely to has a downward pressure with
Perfect,
more oil getting produced and such.
perfect, perfect. Let's talk about one of your favorite assets, Bitcoin. What is it? I'm going to put a little bit of color to it. I think let's say October-ish, we hit a high of about 120. We have literally split that in half. As of today, June 28th, we're at 59, so we've seen basically a half price of Bitcoin. We just, again, go back. Oh, go back. We have a podcast on Bitcoin that tells us more about the history on it. If you want to know more about it, go back a few months. We have it in our library. Right now, it's about news and prediction of the Bitcoin. So I guess Mr. I don't should call you Mr. Bitcoin, but Mr. Somebody who really is passionate about Bitcoin. What are your thoughts? Is it a buying opportunity? Do you put fresh money in it? Do you sell? Do you wait? And why is this happening? There you go. That's a lot of questions, but
Yes, a lot of questions. Yeah, I am personally not buying it. If I had money that was free, I would probably buy some more. Easily available. I also buy it anonymously, so it's a little more of a struggle to buy it. So yeah, I mean, I still think there's a 99.99% chance that Bitcoin is going to $1 million in the next, 20 to 50 years. In dollars. Dollars are basically guaranteed to go to zero. So you're on a sinking ship if you're using dollars. Gold, you're fine. At Bitcoin, I would say you're potentially some upside with adoption. Um, so there's that. So yeah, I guess buying opportunity, buy the dip sort of thing. But again, I'm not going to call the bottom in Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to, 30, 20. It doesn't, in terms of when I'm going to buy, I would probably be buying under 10,000, I would say. It would be probably
you say
worth it to me.
10? Did you say 10?
Under 10,000.
Under 10.
It's a very volatile asset, it wouldn't surprise me if it went under 10,000. It would.
So you're saying really you would be surprised if it lost 90% of its value from last year. But what's your time period? Just let me ask you this. What's your time period on well, you're not really making a prediction. Let me rephrase this. Are you willing
Yeah, I'm
to
not really
make
predicting. I think that's
yeah,
not
are
likely.
well, let's get into this question. Why? Why do you think it went down? I
You
think
know,
I have my predictions on why, but
yeah, my suspicion with this because of so you have the natural incentive, kind of like gold. If you look at the gold market, you have it's global, but you have a pretty stable, like there's people that are digging out of the ground, and that costs quite a bit of money to do. There's no one that like walks around and like finds big gold things and just, it's really, or if they do, they're not telling people about it. Everyone that's publicly getting gold is having to deal with a lot of dirt and spending a lot of money to go through this dirt to find this gold. So it's really quite difficult to get, an ounce of gold. Um, you have that, and then you have the demand, which is pretty stable. I mean, you've increased in population, so the demand goes up. Some electronics, banks, central banks, sort of, high net worth investors that will buy a little more or whatever. But it's fairly stable. So, like when I was getting into it, when I put actually virtually all my net worth into gold in the COVID time when it was quite low in 2000s, it didn't really do anything for like 2 years. So there's a whole paper gold market that can be used to manipulate the price that I don't know enough to know that it was manipulated, but I know enough to know that it doesn't make sense if you look at the inflation, more people buying gold and the limited production of gold, what would be reasonable to expect in a free market, the price would go up. It did not go up. It stayed pretty stable around 2000 for a long time. So that tells me there's some sort of manipulation. The US government is the most likely, um, has the most to lose by gold price going up. So that's who I'm suspicious of, basically. There's different ways they can manipulate that. So I think it's situations similar to that. Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a lot more ways to manipulate it. So it wouldn't surprise. That's what I'm saying. If it went to under 10,000, I would start buying because I'm not really particularly worried about it unless something changes or, like the Satoshi starts selling his coins or there's some, the encryption is broken or something significant. But these are very unlikely scenarios. So I would be presumably as bullish as I am now on Bitcoin, but be actually buying under 10,000, assuming, predicting in the next year, 10 years, 20 years that Bitcoin's going to be a million, just really the same way I predict now. It's a very volatile asset. So that's my
Let me ask
guess
you
on.
this: is Bitcoin cheap now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not as cheap. So I was buying in the 30,000, the high 30s. So, and it's the same asset as it is now. There's a little bit more adoption, a little bit more retail and investor money going in now. So I would say that the chance of it going down is it's just hard. Because you have money going in, just like index funds, are always pumping money into Nvidia and whatever, all these different stocks. So it's really hard for them to go down if there's constantly someone buying. So Bitcoin, there's constant people buying.
Yeah, that was going to bring up to my prediction on why it's going down. I think people were selling Bitcoin to put into SpaceX, the chip stocks, Micron, the things that have gone up. That's again my
Yeah,
prediction.
yeah. I'm sure there's quite a large amount of people that are like, hey, Bitcoin used to like go up double every year. Now it's boring. It's drifting down. Like, the hell with this. Let me jump the ship. And yeah. The trend traders and the guys that just want to buy something that goes up. They don't care whether it's, tulips or Micron stock or a digital ape or whatever. They don't care what they're buying as long as it's going up. Um, so yeah, those guys are, certainly no one's around in Bitcoin doing that, unless they're shorting it. Uh, so yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if there was a decent amount of money going out of Bitcoin right now, and that's really it's a good time to buy when everyone hates Bitcoin. It's really the best is right after everyone hates Bitcoin, and everyone's forgotten about it. That's probably the best time. Like like 20 was it 2019 when it was down at like 3,000 4,000, and it wasn't cool anymore. That was a fantastic buying opportunity.
Um, are you still going to stick with your prediction of one? I think you said 100,000, 200,000, roughly. Am I right? Roughly at
Yeah,
this point,
100 to $250,000 by the end of the year is my prediction.
this year
Um,
within the next 6 months.
Seems very unlikely at this point with this manipulation. So, my prediction, and I think I even earlier had modified my prediction to like more likely 150. Yeah, I mean, I think,
You still think you can double? You still think you can double in 6 months? I guess that's a better question. Double meaning 120. Get some 150.
yeah, I mean, it moves sort of in waves. Like it doesn't really move quickly like it did earlier. So I would say at this point that's a very unlikely scenario. Like my prediction right here, right now, looking at the price, it's drifting down. Um, be more like 60 to 100,000 by the end of the year, more like that, or maybe even lower, maybe 50 to 100,000 by the end of the year. But it's definitely has a upward bias because the dollar is going down against Bitcoin every day, every second,
Uh,
fundamentally.
you want to do the next 5 minutes on data centers, or do you want to continue on?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we're gonna hit data centers. You
Yeah,
want
okay.
to?
We got about 5 minutes. So we've talked about Iran, we've talked about oil, we've talked about Bitcoin. We're gonna talk about data centers. As you know, or as you maybe don't know, there's been many data centers have been built out over the last, I'd say about 6 months, right? Maybe a year, 6 months to a year, all over America.
Or at
Many
least
people
starting the projects and stuff.
starting the projects. Many people, at least the public, is like publicly, a lot of them are against it for many reasons: water consumption, taking away jobs, the negatives, etc. With that being said, is that all the companies which are actually involved with this, like Caterpillar, have just gone up. So they're building out this AI
Infrastructure.
AI kind of revolution, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a little bit different than the railroad and with fiber optics because chips become you have to replace chips. You know what I mean? Every few years because you got to update them. So you're always doing that constant update. So it's a little bit different. Um, I guess we're not, well, I guess right now the market is kind of reflecting on building out of the data centers, right? So I guess where do you see this whole data center play, Dylan? Um, in terms of the future, is AI the future? What do you think about this?
Well, I mean, first thing, I think that they're just gravely at fault of just not making them appealing, like sort of just forcing them on people. It's like, hey, it's like kind of like the vaccine thing. It's like everyone's getting vaccinated, whether you like it or not. It's like it's just a bad idea. Like maybe like a submissive people would be a bit better to do that on like a, I don't know, uh, Asian population or something. But for the Americans, it's going to bring a lot of protests and a lot of like, hey, why? I don't want this. Why are you trying to make us, do it here like the Utah thing? And if I was in Utah, I'd be protesting too. It's like I have no upside here, all downside, and you want me to get behind this? Like there is 0% chance of me doing that. Um, the only one that seems to want it are billionaires and in these companies that have these huge contracts, like 1% of the population basically. And the rest of everyone's like, I don't want it, myself included. I'm not interested in getting into data centers. I would be happy to protest. I'm strongly against it. But the only reason being we have to beat China, which I think is a pathetic reason that you could give, like, everyone needs to wear stilts because we have to beat China. Like you could put that in anywhere. It doesn't really make sense. It's like the boogeyman. Unlike a lot of people, I've been to China and I'm really not really was not impressed. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of great videos and real life is not the videos. Let's put it that way. At least not what I saw. So really I would not, if we were to swap places, I think the U.S. would be in a far worse situation than we are now. We have massive advantages compared to China, even though we've outsourced all our manufacturing. This is a temporary, like, few decade thing that the wind could blow and they could lose all their factories and those could move somewhere else. This is sort of a trend, in a broad sweep of time. It's sort of irrelevant that we build things in China. We could build things in Africa. We could build things in the US. We could build things in Latin America. There's really no reason as long as you're near an ocean. Um, so on the data centers, yeah, I mean, I think if they're still going to push them through and get them done and do the AI and stuff like that, I think it's still going to happen to some degree, through the protests. The space thing is probably, and there's also the whole Peter Thiel thing with the data centers in the water. Again, a lot harder to protest that. So these are intelligence workarounds for the protests of the American people. It's space data centers at Elon, although his predictions are probably more likely wrong than not, but wants to do with data centers. And then you have the one Peter Thiel was probably a little more reliable, wants to do the ocean data centers. So that seems more likely to occur. And so then uh those data centers will be there. The AI will have that power, and I think the AI will continue and do well. But I think it's still going to run into protests. They're still going to build some anyway, and they'll get through it and they'll get some built, and then we'll have the other ones built, and we'll keep doing with the AI. And I don't know whether we're going to win China or not is sort of irrelevant. I think that's just like having the Democrats and Republicans argue. It's irrelevant if you're a big boy, a billionaire, or you're playing big, you're doing big things in the world. This is sort of like a distraction. Doesn't really matter. So that's my take on
Got about 30 seconds, so I can't really expand on it too much.
that. Anything you want to add to that or
No, no,
question?
wow. I'm gonna have to really condense it. But so the only thing I will add to it is I guess I'm not even sure if this AI thing is going to be real. The genie's out of the bottle, but I don't know if they've found a way to be profitable with it yet. Have they?
That's a good point. Yeah.
No, I mean they haven't really found. So again, eventually maybe they will. Like Amazon wasn't profitable. I keep on bringing this up. Amazon wasn't profitable for a long
But
time.
but you can see Amazon being profitable down the road. It just
Down the
had to
road,
get
but
up